Is water wet?
It is not.
Possibly.
No.
When you're underwater, you're not wet.
You're part of the ocean. I would agree with that, actually.
You're wet when you get out of the water, but not underwater, you're not wet.
I like that. I do agree with that. I hate that I agree with that, but I do.
It's true. You agree with it because it's true.
What's the definition of wet? Let's look that up really quick.
Soaked. I mean, water on you.
Well, okay.
We don't say that air is on us, do we?
Covered with water.
Yes.
You can't be more covered with water than being under the water.
That is.
But it cancels out because you're not covered in air right now.
Yeah, because appendix.
I'm not saying I'm wet. I'm saying I'm dry.
No, I agree, but that's
true. Yeah, no, you got me back on your side, Zach.
I'm just going. I understand what you mean.
If you have water on you outside of water, then you're wet. I think water cancels it out.
Wait a minute. Just another question here on the sidebar. It says specifically, is water wet? And it says water is both wet and not wet at the same time. Confused? Let's break it down. Okay, we're going to let the show go a little longer because we're going to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
Because Stu just opened up a fucking can of worms.
I've had this argument many times in my life. Believe it or not.
I swear to God, if this article from zmescience.com has the exact same argument that you just said, I'm going to be so pissed off.
I've probably cited this article in arguments before.
Probably. We'll get to whether water is wet in a moment. Don't fucking tease me. Okay, so water is wet. Why is water wet and why is it not? These headings suck. Because water is a liquid, it cannot be wet itself. Wetness requires a substance to be in contact with a surface, and water is the substance in this case. I don't think this.
I don't know about that.
I don't think this defends you at the moment. It's saying since it's the thing that makes things wet, so water itself cannot be wet. If you're under the water, you're still fucking wet, but water can't become wet.
Not until you get out of water.
Water, because wet is being covered in water. Yeah. Water can't be just covered with water. It's just water then.
Although are covered and submerged not the same thing?
No.
What? What do you mean? Of course, I think so. What's the difference between covered and submerged?
Submerged is covered is like is like blanketed. Submerged is like I can't make this right. I can't think of it.
Okay, so covered is overlaid with or enclosed within something, while submerged is underwater.
Oh!
I don't think
that didn't do anything for your argument.
Submerged doesn't have to be water. Exactly. Submerged is only water. You can be submerged in other things, for sure.
I believe they call that dipped.
Okay, let's bring it back to football. You got a 2 high coverage. You got a 2 shell. It's a blanket coverage.
Yep.
It's still, if you're underneath it, you're still submerged by the coverage.
No, you're covered.
You're not submerged. Covered.
Submerged would be like you're under a pile with every single player on top of you.
Covered is on top, submerged is under. So, if you're the one getting covered, you're submerged.
No.
But from an outside perspective, from a third party, you're saying that thing is covered.
We're going to have to start saying that submergence was great.
And Stu, I see your other message, and I'm not getting to that because my brain can only focus on one element.
That's just clear.
I need to break down what Nick is saying here.
Okay, please.
Liquids can't make liquids wet.
That's what I just said.
Is oil a liquid? Yes or no?
No.
Oh, see, okay. So you pour oil in water, and that is covered in water due to the density.
That's true. You did get me there. That is true. Luke's back in the lead.
Okay, fine, but I said oil's not water. What would you say to me? Or not a liquid? What would you say to me?
I think you're wrong about that.
I think you're wrong.
I think I'm wrong about that too. I did agree right away. Is Subway submerged? I think technically submerged by not even allegations. It's just lawsuits upon lawsuits that Jared, the biggest spokesperson of all time, just covering. Submerged, maybe.
Yeah, I think Subway's also submerged
in child pornography.
Subway's also just submerged in horrible fucking food.
Yeah,
true. I want to say I'm going to admit something couple days ago, I thought about, should I go to Subway? I made the decision no, but I did think about it for a second. That's the first time I thought that in at least a decade.
That's
Listen,
crazy.
next time somebody talks
I went
about
to Jersey Mike's.
Next time somebody talks about Jared from Subway and allegations, don't start with, I gotta admit something right after. You need to preface that a little bit better next time.
Timing could have been better. I agree.
So Nick's argument here being oil and water don't touch. How is that any different than when you're in water?
Also, nothing touches.
What are you talking about?
Nothing.
What do you mean oil and water don't touch? When you pour oil in water,
they repel each other.
No, but Luke, if you go all the way,
no, you don't. When you come out of the water, when you come,
but
I really hate this.
But Luke, if you go all the way back, nothing ever touches. Do you remember that? Atoms don't overlap, like they never touch. There's always that gap. So,
War Eagle, you might need to pause for a second. And great comment from Stu. That was.
So water's touching you, but it's not touching the oil. That makes no fucking sense.
But it doesn't touch anything.
Nothing. There's something I could use to defend Luke here, and I don't think I want to defend you.
Do it.
I mean, your body has natural oils, doesn't it? So you're kind of repelling water that way.
I was going to get there eventually.
Yeah, I know, but
the water washes off the natural oils sometimes. So the answer is it depends.
Which is what this article was saying all along.
I'm taking Devontae Smith over Kareem Hunt this week.
Is water wet? It depends on whether you ask a scientist or an English teacher. Well, I'm not asking an English teacher science questions.
This is turned into a philosophy question.
It's like asking a journalist about football. Like they don't know football.
If we ever try to sell this podcast, this should be the clip we use.
I mean, I can't tell if we're making incredible content or if more people than I ever thought hate me right now.
This is what the people want to see.
Nick, I would ask that same question to the oil that's underwater.
Also, I don't have to touch the inside of an oven to know it's hot.
True. It's the aura.
The aura. That's a good word.
This article isn't really talking about what we're talking about. This is just, is water wet? And no, it's not wet because water makes things wet. It's saucy. I mean, if we're talking about Sauce Gardner, yes.
So does water make water wet?
No, because water is the thing that makes things wet.
So the water in the ocean does not make the water in the ocean wet. The water is the component that makes things wet, but not the
water is the wetter. It makes things wet. It is the water, and then everything else is the wetty. You know what I mean?
I don't think that's true.
I think it is. Water. I mean, to be wet, you have to be covered in water. Water being covered in water is still just water.
It's wet water.
It's like if you have a glass of lemonade, Luke.
Do you understand how crazy that sounds? That wet water.
Yes.
That's why you're not wet when you're underwater.
Luke, no. No, I don't. Yes. Okay, Nick, I have a feeling he's coming with logic here. Let's go. Since you use the theory that once you get out of water, then you turn wet, what about when someone splashes you with a hose? Does that make you wet or no, since you didn't go under?
Your skin goes under the wave of water that crashes into you. So yes, it still counts.
A part of you is going underwater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a slam dunk on him. I don't think that fully hurts Luke's point. I still think your point's wrong. But
this is good.
I don't know how you don't say, like, if you're underwater, you're not wet. What are you talking about?
I think
okay, so the point that you become wet is the immediate point that air touches you.
I would say yes.
Why?
Because you're part of the ocean.
I'm not a scientist.
Because you're part of the ocean like the rest of the water.
Thank you, Trevor.
No, it's just you're covered with water. So you come out of the water. I'm wet.
Yes.
To dry off, should I go back in the water?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of the world, in relation to what you're in, you would be dry.
Being wet is not relative to something else. It's not.
I think in this case it is.
I think it is.
Being more wet would be relative, but being wet or not is just yes or no. It's black or white.
I disagree
with that.
I think it's clearly gray. You've been talking about this for 10 minutes. It's clearly not black and white.
It is, though. It is. You guys are trying to live in this gray area, and I'm telling you, not everything needs to have a fucking hypothetical. It's just you're wet or you're not.
I think if Luke could debate anybody about everything or about anything, and more times than not, he'd get me on his side.
Nick, you're right. That was one of the things that that's correct. A liquid cannot make a liquid wet. I think we all agree with that, right?
No, that does not make any sense to me. Why not?
What do you mean why can't a liquid make another liquid wet?
Does it matter?
It's wet form of matter. It's
everything's made up of atoms.
That's true.
Trevor, shut up.
Speaking of that, you know what's crazy? You know
this conversation.
Like everything in the world, like all atoms have like an electron, like a huge electron cloud.
Uh-huh.
What if you just condense that all? How small do you think the world would be? Like if electron clouds just did not exist.
Gotta be honest, don't know. I really I don't know how much of the electron cloud factors into space at this point. Maybe a lot. I don't know.
I think it's a lot.
Maybe. You also think that being underwater doesn't make you wet, though.
He's right, though. It does not.
Yes, I'm correct in saying that.
No. Is mayonnaise a liquid? Yeah.
Sure. I can be talked out of that.
Okay, fair enough. Christian Leal is Dalton Kincaid at top 5 rather. Tight end rest of season. I think no, but I think he's top 10.
I think he's probably outside of 5 looking in.
Sure.
We had another one from Liam Qualley at 8:30 too. Question.
Okay, that's not that long ago, I guess. Let's scroll up here. Liam, if you're still here, bless you. I'm 2-6, and now dumber after listening to what we were just talking about. Obviously, something needs to change. I agree with us and your team. Stroud, Lawrence, Bijan, Jacobs, Kupp, Devontae, Kmet, Ridley, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Pierce, Sutton, Dell, Connor. What do? I think you can trade away Ridley. Probably can trade away Aaron Jones. I mean, all three of us Packer fans, we think it's going to be a heavier dose of AJ Dillon rest of the way, it sounds like.
Yep. I think you're fine at receiver.
For sure.
I also think you're fine at running back.
Yeah, you've had a couple specific players really underachieve. Obviously, Cooper Kupp's really underachieved the last couple of weeks. I'm fine trading Ridley and Jones to upgrade one of those two positions. Jonathan Taylor's still there. So, I mean, I think your running backs are stacked if you go with Bijan, Jacobs, and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
You still have Pierce behind there. So I would probably try to upgrade wide receiver.
Like, I think a 5-sum of Bijan, Jacobs, Kupp, I'm guessing Devontae Smith, and Jonathan Taylor. Like, you can do much worse than that.
I also don't hate just going Aaron Jones and Trevor Lawrence and upgrading quarterback.
You're right. Yeah. Like, quarterback seems to be the biggest upgrade here, to me. Probably tight end, too, but yes.
Doesn't that feel nice to be on the same page?
Yeah. I don't know. I like the conversations that people don't like to have.
Me too. I gotta tell you, there's multiple times in the conversation where I think Steve's going off about Diggs again here too. Yeah. What is tonight's show? Okay. Okay, Nick did research for us. Let's talk about this. I looked it up. It says liquid cannot make a liquid wet. Yes, agreed. So, could water make itself wet with that logic? No.
No.
I don't think we're debating that. Only Luke is for some reason.
Oh, shit. Hold on. I just read Steph's question. If you ever had wet mayonnaise, and I have it, it's horrible, man.
That's a great point. It can't be too wet.
First shift made McChickens is not wet. We need to have Stoof on the show sometime, man.
So that's my point, though. Like, if you're underwater, water is also underwater.
No. Water's not. What do you mean? It's not.
The water's just a huge fucking thing?
The water is still the water. It's not under itself. It's just water.
I think there's water underwater.
Have you ever taken a glass of water and then you added more water to it? It's not the water went on top of the water. It's just all water there. It's a liquid. That's what liquids do.
How do underwater lakes exist then?
I fucking don't know. Isn't there a solid between them?
I don't think so.
Yeah, usually there is.
So they're just layers.
That's just a deeper part. We're just calling it underwater lakes for no reason. It's just a deeper part.
It always blew my mind when people said there's rivers and lakes underwater.
Yeah, that is a good point. That really does add a brand new element to what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man.
Water becomes one until it is divided.
What does that mean?
I mean, water finds its level. Liquids always go with itself. You know what I mean? So water isn't underwater, but when you are underwater, you are submerged. You are covered.
But you're not wet.
I mean, we just kind of said the definition of being wet. But that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Being wet is, I think being wet, the definition of that is malleable. I think that's what we've learned.
Maybe it's a bad definition. That might be fair. Merriam or Webster, come on the show. I'd like to debate you. And it sounds like we all would.